Good evening, everybody. Nice to meet everybody again for the second meeting of the project of this year, that is Jewish Italy around the world. We have this evening with us Rahel Sarfati, that she is the chief curator of the Israel Museum. He researched for several years about one interesting field that are the Megillot, the scrolls, and about the holy places of the pilgrimages of the Jewish and not Jewish people comes to the Holy Land to see the holy places. And specifically, she researched and also discovered, because it was rediscovered by her, the most important testimony that we have about this kind of scrolls, that is the Firenze scrolls, that we had an interesting period where I was in Florence, and she mentioned me these important scrolls with the manuscripts, and we had also the possibility of showing it in Florence. And after, I don't remember if she had also the chance of showing it in Israel or not yet. Yes, you
Yes,
had.
yes,
You had,
yes.
and recently also she published something about specifically these important scrolls that are two tomes of these interesting books, that is the מגלילת פירנצה, מסע מצויר של עולי רגל יהודי מימי הביניים, that is a real important book. And so I'm very glad to give her the floors and to tell us something about her researches and about this relevant scroll. As usual, you know, the people who prefer to hear this lecture in Italian va a interpretariato, alla base dello Zoom interpretariato, sceglie l'italiano, e dopo aver scelto l'italiano, se vuole, può escludere l'audio o abbassare l'audio in modo che sente soltanto l'italiano e non sente le parole di Rachel in inglese. E tutti gli altri invece sentiranno ovviamente le parole di Rachel in inglese, as usual. The audience who wants to make questions to our interesting lecturer can write on the chat their questions, or alternatively, we will see if there is time to open the microphone, and in order that the people can make their questions directly to our lecturer. So if there are no other things to do and I didn't forget anything, I give the floor to Rachel. Very happy to have her here with us. And at the
Thank you
name,
very
yes, no, just at the name of all director of the Jewish Museum that are connected now with you, we are everybody very glad to have you with us. Please.
much. Thank you very much, Madeo, for the invitation, for the introduction. And I'm very excited and very happy to share with you my studies. And first of all, to introduce you the Israel Museum. Shall I start with my presentation now?
Yes, you.
Yes. So just a moment.
So you have the PowerPoint opened.
Okay, share.
Yes.
And inside the, okay.
Here we are.
Nice.
Here we
go.
are. Sorry, I told you, technical issues is my first problem. So I'll start. The Israel Museum was inaugurated in May 1965. However, the core of our collection actually dates back to Bezalel School of Art and Craft, founding in 1906 by Boris Schatz. He shared this vision with Theodor Herzl, who saw the importance of establishing such a cultural center. When Bezalel School was founded, it was essential to Schatz to create, alongside it, a national museum that would display the workshop extensive array of artwork, as well as a collection of Jewish art and object of material culture. You can see here one of the galleries in the Bezalel Museum, and you can
Yes,
see here
we can see, yes.
shots. Do you see my mouse? At the left side of
we
this.
can see your mouse, very, very little, but we see.
Okay, Schatz is standing here in the gallery. Today, the museum collections are divided across 4 wings: archaeology, fine arts, youth wing, and the Jewish art and life. The collection and exhibition galleries of the archaeology wing are dedicated to the people and cultures of the land of Israel, spanning back some 1.5 million years. The collection on display here is considered among the world's leading collections of its kind. The Shrine of the Book is one of the most significant parts of the Israel Museum. This special gallery holds one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the last 75, the Dead Sea Scroll, which are approximately 2,000 years old manuscripts of the Bible. The symbolic building of the Shrine of the Book is considered as international landmark of modern architecture. You can see it from outside and from inside. The Fine Art Gallery wing have a little bit of everything under the umbrella of fine art. Israeli art, European art, modern and contemporary art, art of Africa, Oceania, and the Americas, Asian art, photography, design and architecture, and prints and drawings. We also have a huge outdoor art garden dedicated to sculptures. The space itself designed to be a meeting of East and West, a giant Zen garden that houses Western art, designed by the Japanese-American sculptor Isamu Noguchi. The Youth Wing of Israel Museum is a world-recognized leader in art education in museum setting. The Youth Wing has studios and classrooms where students learn to make art, a library of illustrated children's books, a recycling room where children learn how to appreciate material culture in the world around them, and exhibition galleries where they learn how to appreciate art in a museum setting, like here. Finally, the Jewish Art and Life Wing, of which I'm chief curator, present the religious and secular material culture of Jewish communities worldwide, spanning from the Middle Ages to present day. There are a few elements that make our collection truly unique. One of the most visible is our synagogue route. 4 original reconstructed synagogues from 3 continents are displayed in the Jewish Art and Life Wing with their original furnishing. There is the Katvam Bagam Synagogue from Kuchin, you can see it here. The Hope Synagogue from Germany. The Vittorio Veneto Synagogue from Italy, which of course all of you know very well. And the Tzedek V'Shalom Synagogue from Suriname. We also have a remarkable collection of rare illuminated manuscripts. Here are just 2 highlights from our collection. The famous Beard Haggadah from Germany, the beginning of the 14th century, where almost all the human figures are depicted with beard's head. And the Rothschild Miscellany here. From Italy, the 15th century, which was included in UNESCO's Memory of the World Register in 2013. This is one of the most magnificent Hebrew illuminated manuscripts in existence, comprised of 37 literary units, including biblical books, a prayer book, book of Halakha, Midrash, philosophy, and historical legends. Most of the objects on display were used by Jews from various parts of the world, including North Africa, Central Asia, Europe, and Israel. Their artistic styles, materials, and uses reveal both similarities and differences among the tradition and costumes of the various Jewish communities. The diversity of our collection can be seen in every cross-section, like the display of ornamental and ornaments, as you can see here, and the Hanukkah lamp display. This is possible because Israel is land of immigrants, and the various aliyot have brought all sorts of communities and the material culture together. The focus of the collection is not only historic, but aims to include the present. The Jewish Art and Life Wing also collects and displays ceremonial objects from the modern era of pre-state Israel, as well as modern Judaica objects. Recently, we also began collecting objects created in the work of the event of October 7th. The redemption of 251 captives became a burning issue in the public arena. The yellow lapin pin has perhaps become most prominent call to awareness over the last 2 years. The color yellow symbolizes the longing for the return of the loved one in American popular culture, and it is swiftly become identified with the current cause. We display this pin alongside charity books with the inscription of the commandment to redeem captives, Pidyon Shvuim, which actually belonged to the Suriname synagogue, which helped raise funds for Alfred Dreyfus. I'm speaking about these charity books, and you can see the yellow pin here. Alongside popular items, we added to this special display works of art. Keep in Light is a mourning necklace by Anat Golan that contemplates, I'm speaking about this necklace, Jewish and Israeli collective and personal mourning. It was created from a metal holder of mass-produced memorial candles, a commonly used object in Israel. Here. It's an innovative Jewish and Israeli version of the mourning amulet or prayer beads often used in other religions like Muslims or Catholic. So this was my short introduction about the Israel Museum. And of course, all of you are most welcome to come and to visit and see our galleries. I'll move on to my lecture, as Amadeus said before, to my study about manuscripts of the genre of illustrated holy sites. And I speak today about the mutual artistic influences between Jewish artists in Italy and artists in the land of Israel. In my lecture, I'm going to present phenomenon of mutual artistic influences between the Jewish communities in the land of Israel and Italy. I call these influences artistic correspondence. I posit that it began as early as the 14th century, and we know that it lasted all the way through the 19th century. This artistic correspondence refers to the artistic genre of depicting the holy sites in the land of Israel. We see this genre in monumental scroll, which is almost 11 meters long, from the early 14th century, known as the Florence Scroll. This scroll and 2 additional fragments were probably written and painted by Egyptian Jews who pilgrimaged to the holy sites in the land of Israel and chose to summarize their journey through visual representations and sometimes some brief text alongside the image. These are what we call a visual travel diary. The Florence Scroll was painted by Jewish pilgrims in the second decade of the 14th century. The scroll has several inscriptions in Italian, and paleographic analysis tells us that the earliest is dated to the second half of the 14th century. This indicates that its creator sold it short time after its completion, and the scroll found its way to Italy already around the middle of the 14th century. The scroll has been in the collection of the National Cultural Library of Florence since it was established in 1861. Before that, it was in the collection of Antonio Magliabecchi. It's possible it was publicly displayed to Jewish and Christian audience in Italy and was part of the inspiration of the tradition of painting holy sites in Italy. Unfortunately, we do not have enough evidence to support this assumption. The evidence we do have today allow us to say with certainty that the scrolls from the 14th century are the source of genre of depicting the holy sites in the land of Israel that developed in the 16th century. At that time, the genre of holy sites became almost institutionalized as an art used for fundraising in support of Jewish communities in the land of Israel. The scrolls were carried by emissaries from the Jewish communities when they went to fundraising abroad. Unlike the earlier scrolls, the scrolls from the 16th century were copied by professional scribes and painters. All of the scrolls bear the essay referred to as Yichus Avot, written in Jerusalem in the late 15th century, and describing the holy sites, the tradition associated with them, and the route of pilgrimage. Conceptually and religiously, it was accepted that the diaspora communities bore a responsibility to support their brethren in the land of Israel. This duty was borne by the commandment that every Jew should live in the land of Israel, and if one cannot do it himself physically, then there should be monetary supported to those who did. Why use the scroll for holy sites for fundraising? What is the reason they use just those scrolls? Historically, it's important to remember that there are no political or state borders in this time, and the term Land of Israel is mostly a religious concept. To the medieval Jewish mind, this promised land is as described in the Bible, divided into 12 lots for the 12 tribes of Israel. Its borders are those discussed in the Halacha, Jewish law, within which one must observe certain commandments specific to the land. So the borders of the land of Israel are defined mostly by the locations of holy sites related to biblical events, biblical figures, or to the burial places of prominent Talmudic and medieval rabbis and persons. These borders are often related to the geopolitical reality of a specific time. In medieval time, Gaza City was considered as the southernmost land entry into the land of Israel. The visual images of the holy site was a way to help the audience imagine the landscape of the Holy Land and to emphasize to their brethren abroad that the Jews of the land of Israel were fulfilling the commandment of living and praying on the land. Displaying these scrolls of the holy site was meant to invoke the audience to generous donation, and they were likely gifted in appreciation to large donors. So how was the visual correspondence between Italy and the land of Israel established? Today, we only know of scrolls of holy sites created either in the land of Israel or in Italy, and nowhere else. One reason is the activity of the emissaries. Venice, as well as other Italian cities, were a resting place for emissaries who arrived via boat to Italy and from there continued westward. We know today of scrolls of holy sites that were created in the land of Israel for emissaries, scrolls that were made or copied in the land of Israel and then had additional illustrations or changes made in Italy, as well as scrolls made in Italy, likely by request of emissary from the land of Israel and based on original brought from there. The scrolls also have specific opening illustrations like the instrument of the temple or the city of Jericho and its wall. I'm speaking about this opening illustration, but unfortunately we don't have enough time to expand about them also. The earliest scroll we have was created in the land of Israel at some point prior to 1538. Stylistically, it is representative of art of the Mediterranean, Egypt, Syria, and the land of Israel. See, for example, this is from the 16th century, this manuscript of Muslim pilgrim, and this is a scroll of the 1213 at the left of the Hajj pilgrim. This plaque of the holy sites was made in Jerusalem in 1549, and you can see the stylistic similarities with the previous scroll. The way of the text and image are edited into columns perhaps indicates that the plaque was meant to be cut into a scroll. Surprisingly, the plaque bears two signatures. The first is of Moshe, son of Aaron Trigger from Jerusalem, in the mid-16th century, and the later signature is of Avraham Atzliach from Senigalia, Italy, in the mid-17th century. Two colophons by two different scribes, one from Jerusalem and one from Senigalia, and about 100 years apart, raises many questions. It seems likely that the earlier scribe and painter in Jerusalem created the plaque. The Italian scribe and painter retouched all the illustrations and made some additions in the empty space left by his predecessor. He added also a hymn in the upper margin here. Another at the end of the third column here. Two Italian-style illustrations underneath the original signature here, and his own signature in the bottom margin here. The two final illustrations depict the Messiah entering Jerusalem according to Zechariah chapter 9 at the Garden of Eden and its three rivers here. The Messiah entering Jerusalem may seem familiar to us from the Venice Haggadah from 1609, as you can see here. The plaque of the holy site is an important piece of our lecture, since the dual colophon is an indicator that the tradition of painting the holy sites traveled from the land of Israel to Italy. Another scroll of holy sites is known as the Uri ben Shimon scroll. Uri ben Shimon was a member of the Jewish community of Safed, and he served as an emissary mostly to Western European cities. He finished the scroll in 1564, and researchers believe he was also the artist. He took the scroll with him to Europe on his journeys, and the illustrations on the scroll show European influence, alongside motifs of the local Eastern style. The red and green coloring is typical of artwork from the geographic region of the land of Israel, just as we see in the previous scroll from the 16th century and the Florence Scroll from the 14th century. This is Reuben Shimon's scroll. This is the previous scroll from the 16th century, and this is the Florence Scroll, and you can see the similarities in the style. We also see oil lamps, which we know from Mass and holy sites. You can see it here, here, and also here. Alongside these characteristics, there are classical Western architectural influences, like the temple that looks like the Dome of the Rock, but was probably fashioned after the structures like the famous Tempietto in Rome. This is the temple in the Reuben Shimon Scroll. Scrolls of holy sites that traveled with emissaries from the land of Israel to Italy inspired a local Italian artist who similarly painted the holy sites. Today we know of two sister scrolls called thus because of the similarities between the two. Even so, the scroll in New York collection here displays a higher level of technical artistry, and it's likely the earlier of the pair. But unfortunately, it's in worse condition than its sister from Jerusalem. The influence of the Italian architecture can be seen in the depiction of Gaza City, which was added by Italian illustrators and does not appear in the scrolls from the land of Israel. Likewise, synagogues in the Italian scrolls appear as classical structures with a series of pillars in their front and a pediment roof. This is one of the synagogues you can see here, also here and here. Of course, you can recognize the Italian architectural on the illustrations. It's interesting to do a stylistic comparison with the illustration of Daniel's coffin. According to the tradition, the coffin of Daniel the prophet in Babylon was suspended by chains from a bridge over Euphrates River. Since the communities on either bank demanded that the coffin and the luck it brings be kept in their area. So the solution was to put him at the middle with chains on the river, above the river. The tradition itself is written in both the scroll from Italy and the one from the land of Israel, but the illustration of the bridge and the suspended coffin reflects the different origins of each of the scrolls. This is from Israel and this is from the land of Israel. There is an important detail at the every end of the both scrolls from Italy, the image of an empty medallion. Unfortunately, the medallion in the scroll of New York did not fully survive here, but you can see it in its sister. Usually, these medallions were intended for writing the names of the owners for whom the scroll was copied and illustrated. The fact that the medallions are empty in both scrolls indicates that the scrolls were not made by commission for a particular patron, but rather were made by order of an emissary who intended to take them on a fundraising journey and give them to donor, upon which happy occasion the name of the donor was added into the empty medallion. I'm sure some of you recognize this manuscript, which is not a scroll, but it bears the same text of Yichus Avot and similar illustrations to the Italian scrolls. The manuscript became well known for its past inclusion in the Cecil Roth collection. In 1929, Roth published a facsimile edition of the manuscript, which included an article that claimed it was an original composition by a Jewish Italian pilgrim who visited the land of Israel and summarized his visit in writing and illustrations. The manuscript bears a colophon that dates it to 1597 or 8 in Casale Monferrato. Today, since we are familiar with the scroll from the holy sites from Italy and the land of Israel, we know that the manuscript from Roth collection is a later copy of the Italian scrolls. This conclusion draws strength for many discrepancies we can see in the text from semi-cursive writing and from the many inaccuracies in the copying the illustrations. An amusing example is the illustration of the cave of Elijah from the Great Synagogue of Aleppo. The original scroll here bears intricate illustration of the gate to court with fruit trees where prayers would be held in summer month, and beneath it, the synagogue and the cave of Elijah, which according to the tradition is adjacent to it. Here we see the gate to the court with the fruit trees, synagogue, and the cave of Elijah. The copyist from Casale Monferrato divided the illustration across 2 pages. What should be the entrance to the cave, where we can see the tombstones and the lit candles in the original scrolls, were turned into a triangular base upon which stand the tombstones and the candles. Here you can see how he changed the original illustrations. Research indicates that the custom of creating scrolls of holy sites ceased at the end of the 16th century. And as of today, we do not know of any generic examples from the 17th century. The artifacts we do have are from the 18th century, by which time the scroll is replaced with a plaque. The earliest plaques of the holy sites were all created in Italy. There are 2 pairs, each pair created by a different artist. These plaques are centered around a different text, which is typically referred to by its Aramaic title, איגרת מספרת יחוסתא דצדיקאיה דערא דישראל. All 4 plaques make a prominent depiction of the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Avraham ben David Yitzchaki, who was the chief rabbi of the Jewish communities in the land of Israel between 1715 and 1722. Yitzchaki spent the year 1711 to 12 in Italy as part of his fundraising emissary work, and he traveled among different communities where he took part in halakhic debates and settles issues of Jewish law. It is possible that the centrality given to his Beit Midrash is an expression of respect or even admiration for his work with the Italian Jewish communities. One pair of plaques is signed by the artist Shmuel ben Ishai of Senigallia, Italy. One of the plaques is dated to August 22, 1720, this. The second plaque, on which the signature did not fully survive, bears the inscriptions, I, Shmuel, son of Shai of Senigallia, copied it from another which was brought from a distant land. This addition to the signature teaches us what we do not have the physical evidence of. Such plaques were created prior to Shmuel, son of Ishai, and possibly this artistic correspondence between the land of Israel and Italy continued uninterrupted from the 16th century and all throughout the 18th century. The clear influence of the Italian tradition of illustrating the holy sites on the art created in the land of Israel can be seen on 2 Sabbath tablecloths. One on the right is tablecloth of holy sites created in Italy, print on textile in the 18th century or beginning of the 19th century. I'm speaking about this map at the right. And on the left is embroidered tablecloth from Jerusalem from the 19th century. And you can see the similarity. The story of the artistic correspondence can be distilled into the visual patterns of representing the temple. Between our two locations, the land of Israel and Italy, we see two distinct archetypes of depicting the temple, which evolved between the 14th century until the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. The first archetypes present the temple in the architectural shape of the two dominant Muslim structures on Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. For example, you can see it here, the two domed structure. The second archetype depicts the temple only in the shape of the Dome of the Rock, like here. The earliest example of this artistic tradition is the Florence Scroll, where the temple is depicted across an area of 2 meters long, showing both structures on Temple Mount. Research of the illustration indicates that in the Muslim original, it was depiction of the Muslim structures themselves. The Jewish illustrator added images and inscriptions in order to give the overall impression of a depiction of the biblical temple. And of course, this deserves a separate lecture to explain all the changes he did. Alongside the Florence Scroll, we have another early depiction of the temple in the Princeton Scroll, which imagines the temple as the Dome of the Rock. Both scrolls are from the 14th century, and they indicate that the artistic tradition of Jewish art of depicting the temple via the Muslim structure originates in the Middle East. The image considered at the past as the earliest portrayal of the temple in the form of the Dome of the Rock appears in opening page of Mishneh Torah by Maimonides from the mid-15th century, northern Italy, here. In the scrolls of the holy sites from the 16th century, we find both types of depicting the temple. In Uri ben Shimon, on the left, the temple appears as the Dome of the Rock, a structure standing in the center of the Temple Mount. The other type appears in the other scroll, which show both Muslim structures. The only differences between them are stylistic. I'm speaking about these two scrolls, this from Italy and this from the land of Israel, and you can see the stylistic differences. On the plaque of the holy site, which we discussed earlier, where the original illustrations were made in Jerusalem, the temple is presented in the shape of the two dominant Muslim structures. In the illustration added by the artist from Senegalia in the 17th century, we see the other convention where the temple appears as the Dome of the Rock. Yeah. This is schematically similar to Rebbe Shimon's scroll from 1564 and to the Venice Agada from 1609. You can see here. Both archetypes of depicting the temple become common in illustrated ketubot and printed books in Italy, mostly in the 18th century. During the 19th century, both patterns become very common in the land of Israel as well. In conclusion, representing the Jewish temple via the Muslim structures on Temple Mount is a local tradition created in the medieval Middle East. It becomes common in Italian communities through the travels of emissaries from the land of Israel, whose fundraising missions effectively turn them into agents of culture, which cross-influences Jewish artists in different parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. We enjoyed it so much in seeing your pictures and for giving us to make the journey also in Italy, beginning from Florence and after Senigallia and Casale Monferrato, and also for explaining your brilliant museum. And so you transmitted the will for everybody to come in Israel and to see your museum and the land of Israel itself. And also, I want to be very, very grateful to you for explaining the origin of the Dome of the Rock, of being the Jerusalem temple, that you know we are really very close to this imagination because we find very, very familiar for us in the pictures and in depicting of our ketubot. And therefore, very, very often I was asked about the origin of depicting the Dome of the Rock as the is Jerusalem temple, even now in our ketubot. Therefore, I'm very, very grateful. I want to, yes, there are the thanks of very of some people hearing us, and I would like to ask to our audience right now if they have any question to make to you, and if somebody wants explanation or observation about this interesting lecture, this is the time of making the questions, perhaps through the chat or opening your microphone if you need. I see that there are people grateful for your lecture. I see several messages. Ho sentito male rappresentare l'ingresso del Messia a Gerusalemme, trova all'interno della Gada di Venezia. Si trova all'interno. Okay, there is one question for you that says if well understood, the entrance of the Messiah in Jerusalem is inside the Haggadah of Venice of the 1609, and I say yes because if you saw the slide before, you have the depicting of the entrance of the Messiah in Jerusalem. The slide before, yes. If you want to explain the picture at the bottom about the Venice Haggadah, Rachel, where
What?
Ani Rochev al Chamor.
Yes, but okay. This is depiction how the entering of the Messiah depicted in Zechariah chapter 9. I'm sorry that I can't remember now the text, but it became very known among Jewish communities, not just in Italy, through the Venice Haggadah. But what I tried to say is that the origin is not Italian, I'm sorry to say, is the earliest convention is the Uri Ben Shimon scroll, and then the Venice Haggadah, and here we can see another early depiction, but after the Venice Haggadah, because this is dated to 1659. It's almost 50 years after the Venice Haggadah. So I think that this miniature based on original that bought from the land of Israel.
Yes, I can add that.
I don't know if I answered the question.
On the donkey. No, yes, this is the Messiah on the donkey coming, and there is the horn that is blown, announcing the entrance of the Messiah inside
Yes.
the Jerusalem
Yes.
city, and the donkey and the poor person riding the donkey is the depicting of the Haggadah of Venice. And after Venice, after this edition was replaced in several other editions in Venice
Yes.
and in Leghorn, and as well in other cities where were published Haggadot of Pesach.
Yes, and
And
probably one of them was the source for this illustration, which damaged, but we can see the horse here and the Messiah and the people on the other side, and the Jerusalem with the wall around it.
yes, it's exactly the same image. Yes, more or less the construction of the image is the same. And okay, I don't see other questions on the chat. Therefore, I want to thanks really Rachel Sarfati for her lecture, and I will just have to remind you the next meeting that it's gonna be. Let me to see exactly when it's gonna be on the 15th of January, 15 January, and we have and our as guests the Musée d'Art and d'Histoire du Judaïsme of Paris. So we have Paris, our guests, always bringing us treasures from Italy that now are shown, are explained, are exhibited in their museum. Therefore, don't miss this next meeting that is gonna be again on 15th of January. I have just to thanks again to Rachel Zarfati and also to wish you for the next festival, for the next holidays, Hanukkah Sameach, and enjoy your festival. Buon Natale to everybody. Happy New Year, and see you next year with joy, with peace and serenity. Thank you so much, everybody. And
Hanukkah
we had a
Sameach.
lot of people with us, more than 120 people, and so it was a real success. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, and Hanukkah Sameach to all of you. Bye bye.
Bye.